Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plots Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. Tulips, boxwood, hydrangeas, and cattails. What do they all have in common? They are viewer questions we are answering today. It's the Q&A show next on the Family Plots Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Every week we receive more viewer questions than we can answer on air. We just don't have the time. Today we're going to show you some questions from the past growing season to help you get ready for spring. That will be here faster than you think. Let's start with a common question we get about hydrangeas. I have what I think is a big leaf hydrangea growing next to my driveway. Every year the plant gets big and looks very healthy, but I've only had 2 flowers on it in the 12 years that I've lived here. It was planted by the previous owner, so I have no idea how old it is. What can I do to make my hydrangea bloom? I don't cut it back because it gets new growth on last year's stems. I do cut back the old stems once I see they don't have new growth on them by early summer. Thank you for any suggestions. This is Ann from Bethlehem, New York. All right. So Miss Ann, hey Mary, a couple of things come to mind for me, right? So the first thing I'm thinking is winter injury, right? This is New York.
Right.
Okay. So of course, the cold weather can actually make those buds abort.
Right.
Okay. The second thing I always think about is too shady, right?
That's possible.
Okay. The third thing, low soil fertility, or it could be too much nitrogen fertilizer. So you're getting a lot of leafy growth, foliage, right? No blooms. The last thing is this, could pruning be an issue?
Right. Because she did mention she's not cutting back very much.
Right.
I think that perhaps if she did a little bit more pruning, she could get some more room and some blooms and get a soil test.
Get a soil test. So I would definitely get a soil test, you know, because we need to know about the fertility,
Right.
of course, but I'm with you on the pruning, right? Now the thing about the big leaf hydrangea, you know, it's the hydrangea microphylla, is this. So it does bloom on old wood, so she does know that.
Right.
So that is real good, right? But you don't want to prune that too late in the summer because that's next year's flowers.
Right.
Right. But I like your suggestion as well.
Yeah.
Some pruning.
I think a little bit of pruning, it might give a little bit more space for her and get some more energy into producing blooms.
Right. So yeah, if you're gonna prune this though, I would prune it earlier in the summer instead of late in the summer. So usually most folks in this area say they wouldn't prune after August the 1st. So you don't wanna get too late in the summer.
Right.
Okay. Because again, that's next year's blooms.
Right.
All right. But yeah, get the soil tested. Let's check on that fertility. And yeah, so we don't have a picture. We don't know about the light conditions.
Right.
But yeah, if you do that, Miss Ann, we think that'll help you out there. Early this summer, I planted 4 boxwoods. Now 2 of them have brown leaves at the top of the plant. Some leaves underneath the plant remain stable. How can I stop my boxwood from turning brown? Thank you. And this is Polly. So boxwood's turning brown.
Yeah,
Up top.
just planted them. It appears to me to be an environmental problem, either with even moisture, temperature, soil moisture,
Yeah.
or maybe too much soil moisture. It's something to do with the environment that it's in. You got to watch because too little and too much water will do the same things.
Yep.
And so, and you can cut off the dead.
That's what I would do.
I would just cut off the dead and just see how it does this thing. Because it was a very warm summer all across the country. So it may have just be stressed from the environment.
Right. Yeah, boxwood do not like wet feet. Okay. And then secondly, just thought of this, make sure you're not planting too deep,
That's true.
right? Because you're choking those roots out.
Yeah, because now the soil level of the container should have been the soil level that they are in right now. So
Right.
if you put dirt up over the top, maybe you should go back and try to move that away because they don't like to be buried. They have to be able to breathe, the roots.
Yeah, it's best to plant high, because the ground settles over time. Yeah, mulch to help regulate soil moisture. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm thinking it might be environmental stresses, but I would just prune out the dead, just see what happens.
Sure.
Yeah, let's see what happens. I just purchased this Cornus Kusa Chinese dogwood this summer and planted it in late August. I noticed the growth stunted since then, and now the leaves are turning brown and look almost like they have a disease or fungus. Is this just transplant shock, or could it be something more? The soil is very clay-like. Could it be a drainage issue or a pH level issue? Any advice appreciated. This is Christina from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So how about that?
Oh, wow.
So, Miss Christina, Celeste is here. So
Hello,
Celeste is
Christina.
going to let us know all about the Cornus Kusa.
Yes.
Chinese dogwood. So what do you think the problem might be? And good picture, by the way.
Yeah,
We
that was
appreciate
an
That's a
excellent
good
picture. And
Yeah.
I feel like this is textbook as
Oh,
far as
I knew you would
visual
like
signs
this.
here. Yeah, of leaf scorch.
Yeah,
And so
leaf scorch.
that usually has to do with availability of water.
Okay.
So I'm not saying that you didn't water it enough or that you didn't water it enough. It could have something to do with this soil situation. I think she mentioned it was a heavy clay.
Heavy clay.
Kind of based soil. So sometimes very heavy clay soils can hold on tightly to moisture to the point sometimes where it's not very available to the plant. So even if you're putting water on, if we have that very fine soil particle also combined with hot and conditions and possibly windy conditions, we're losing a lot of moisture off of that leaf surface. We're losing moisture faster than the roots are able to pull that water up into those plant tissues. And then you end up with scorch, and that's where you've got burn right on the edges of the leaf. And that's because if we think about the physiology of a plant, what's the farthest point of that plant from the point of origin where it takes up water? They take up water through the roots. Water's being transported and
xylem.
used throughout the plant, and then it gets to the very edges of those leaves and it's run out, right? It's just, there's no more water. And so that's why we see the burn starting there on the edges of the leaves. So, I don't know that there is any magical solution. I see this year after year on not only these Chinese dogwoods, but flowering dogwoods as well.
I see
So
it as
it's
well.
pretty common. So I would, I'd just say water availability, and there may not be anything you can do to fix that.
All right, just
So-
keep it comfortable as possible. So because we talked about late August, we don't know what the conditions were,
Right.
there in Canada at that time.
I'm
but,
wondering if when it was planted, a lot of the roots were disturbed, and so the tree lost some of its ability to pull up.
have.
Some of those feeder roots,
Yep,
that's a
water.
good
Yeah.
Could have
possibility.
been, for
So
sure.
it could grow out of it
Yeah.
this next year.
Like I said,
Yeah.
just keep it comfortable. It
Once
possibly can.
it kind of gets rooted in and takes hold and gets used to that native soil that's very heavy, they'll sometimes will even out. And providing a good layer of organic mulch
See, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, put
to
some mulch
keep
around
that
it.
root
Right.
zone
Keep
nice
it
and cool, and conserve water that does get down into the profile. So for sure.
Yeah, we appreciate that picture, Christina. And let's say this, because somebody's probably thinking, so Chinese dogwood, Canada? Well, yeah, you could do that, right? Because,
Well, I'm not sure what the uppermost zone is for
5B.
Oh, okay. Well, then,
5B. So, of course, the Cornus Kusa can grow best in zones 5 through 8. And that's 5B.
5B.
Right.
There you go.
So what is that? -15, -20 degrees. It should be able to withstand. God, it's cold.
That is cold.
That is pretty cold. But
That's
so
cold.
you
Around
can
here, yeah.
grow dogwood in Canada.
Canada. Parts of Canada.
Yeah, parts of Canada anyway. Yeah, because
Her
again,
part
this
of
is
Canada.
5B.
No, yeah.
But yeah, we do appreciate that question. Good picture again. So yeah, just keep it comfortable. Yeah, a nice little layer of mulch. I think that'll get it. Is it best to plant a Japanese boxwood or English boxwood here in the Mid-South? And this is Ms. Harris from Memphis, Tennessee.
Well, English boxwood is it's Buxus sempervirens sofruticosa.
Okay.
Okay. And so, and it does not work well here at all. I only know of a couple of examples of English box. It's the box that's the most susceptible to boxwood blight for one, but it's also never really liked our Memphis heavy clay soils and our hot summers. So works well in England, but not here. So I always discourage people from planting English boxwood. And interestingly enough, in Nashville, it seems to grow okay without the boxwood blight. Yeah. So, but here it just doesn't like us. So I only know of a couple of examples in raised beds where people have been successful, and I think those plants are now dead too. So anyway, but you know there are a lot of cultivars of boxwood that are specific. I think some of the Asian boxwoods are probably better suited to the Mid-South. Green Beauty is a great one. Jim Stauffer is another one. Those are two really strong ones that'll give you that big green rounded form. Okay. Little Missy is a I think it's boxwood blight resistant little short form that works well too. So there are a lot of options in boxwood, and I think all the breeders are actually switching to a lot of Asian genetics in their breeding because they tend to be more resistant to boxwood blight. But the English box is kind of the canary in the coal mine. If you want to find boxwood blight, it's going to be the first one.
It's going to be the first one. How about that? So no English boxwood here.
No English boxwood here in Memphis.
Why does my ginkgo tree have brown spots on the leaves? It is about 3 years old. It is on the east side of my house and gets full sun until mid-afternoon. And this is Carla from Bartlett, Tennessee. So what do you think about that one, Lee?
Sometimes the geckos can get leaf scorch from the excessive heat that we have sometimes in the summertime or the drought. That could be potentially a problem, or it could be a bacterial spot that's got occurred on the leaf. But the good thing about that is it's going to drop its leaves here at the fall, and that problem will be gone, and probably will not have that problem next year. It's not something that's organic as far as going to come back every year. That's a physical damage that's occurred on those leaves.
Okay, now that sounds good. So yeah, it is a 3-year-old tree. We thank you for the picture. Yeah, those leaves are going to fall. Practice good sanitation.
That's right.
Right, I will pick those leaves up. I will bag those leaves over the trash. Okay, but yeah, ginkgo trees are susceptible to leaf scorch. Yeah. Right, so the water's not getting to those leaves. Right, so we just got to make sure that we're watering. If you think about it, recently we have been in a drought. So yeah, think about your environmental conditions and weather patterns. So I would get it watered, but yeah, those leaves are going to drop, bag them up, put them in the trash. We'll see what happens next year. Do you use the same methods of spraying and pruning for cherries as you do for other fruit trees like peaches and plums? I have a black Tartarian and a Bing cherry tree, and I was wondering when to spray and prune these. And this is Greg from Elion, New York. All right, so Celeste, what do you think about that? This is the same method for spraying and pruning the cherries as it would be for peaches and plums.
Well, I'm just going to start with, here in Tennessee, we really don't recommend folks to grow sweet cherry trees. So I don't know a ton about the culture of cherry trees and what would be the appropriate ways to move forward on that. So I'm going to pass it on to Natalie if she has any thoughts.
Let's see if she has any thoughts. We can go with that.
Cherries are one of the challenging crops environmentally. Disease.
Yes, too many diseases.
And so in general, a lot of orchard tree practices are going to be similar. Peach trees are often pruned more open center, and my understanding, is that cherry trees are often pruned more central leader like you would an apple. So follow those types of pruning guidelines, and a spray program is going to be very important, especially for sweet cherries. New York, Cornell, got a great land grant, a long history of fruit production, so we would recommend you get some of that spray program that I'm sure they have great publications on.
I'm sure they have a fruit tree spray guide.
All laid out in a chart form, I'm sure. Easy to read, easy to use.
I'm sure they have that, Greg, and they will probably also have a publication about pruning, because the pruning practices will be different, you know, for peaches and plums versus that of cherries. It'll definitely be different. I live in a townhouse, and the only garden I have room for is in pots. We have many mosquitoes. Do you have any ideas on how to get rid of mosquitoes and prevent them from breeding in plant containers? I'm looking for something that will not hurt my tropical plants. Thank you, and this is Sandy from Western Florida. So they got mosquitoes down there too, huh? Yeah, so can we help out Miss Sandy?
Mosquitoes have to have standing water.
Yep.
They have to have standing water somewhere. So that's what I would look for that. And
I would too.
and if you have standing water in the base of your tropical plants, they got to have 7 days of standing water. So if you can get all that water out once a week,
It help.
you know, that would break the cycle if they're breeding in that standing water.
Right.
Now, I'd be looking around elsewhere to see if there's standing water
that's what I
elsewhere
was
in
thinking.
tires or bird waterers.
mhm.
And then it's okay to have a bird water. Just change the water once a week.
That's right.
You know, change the water once a week. I mean, I got a call out to Graceland a few years ago when I was a county extension agent here in Memphis, and the West Nile virus was a real problem.
I remember. Yeah.
And Elvis's horses had a water trough, and mosquitoes were breeding in the water trough. And I simply said, get rid of the water trough and put a smaller watering thing out here, and come out here, you know, every couple of days and fill that up and you know, and pour it out and change it, and that took care of that.
Yep.
So just change something. You know, if you've got water standing, you don't have to have standing water that stands longer than 7 days, and that would break the cycle.
That would break the cycle. I'm with you, Mr. D. Yes, it's standing water. And if there is a bird bath or something like that nearby, you can actually use those mosquito dumps.
That's right. You can put
Yep.
that in there.
Contains
Yeah.
BTI.
That same thing with the ornamental, you know, hardscape.
Right.
If you got
Exactly
something
right.
like that, right?
You
right.
use those mosquito dumps and they'll do the job for you.
And if you got, there are mosquito fish that you can put in ponds and things like that, and larger standing bodies of water. You know, that's you've got to go with something like that.
Gotta go with it. All right, Sandy, I hope that helps you out, especially down there in Western Florida, right?
Yeah, and there's lots of standing
There's
water
lots
in
of standing
Florida.
water down
lots
that
of
way.
standing water in
That's
Florida.
for sure. What month should I plant tulip bulbs? And this is Marissa. All right, Jolie, you know a little bit about tulip
yes,
bulbs in
tulip-
our area,
yeah.
but yeah, we need
Well,
to explain that,
yeah.
you know, for other areas as well, other zones. as
Other
well.
zones,
Right.
yeah, like if you take zones 1 through 3, September, September is when it should be planted up until October and into October. Zones 4 and 5, like late September to the beginning of November. And then like where we are in 6 and 7, we're here in 7, they like October to December. Then zones 8 and 9, they say late November into December. And then zone 10 is early January.
Wow.
But you know, most bulb companies, when you buy bulbs or nurseries that have bulbs for sale, they usually only have them out, you know, when it's time for you to plant them. And the problem with tulips is, in all bulbs, they like 60-degree weather in the soil temperatures of 60 degrees to be able to initiate the bloom cycle for the bulb. So that's the key, is the temperature and the length of the temperature. But sometimes in zones 8 through 10, they sell pre-chilled bulbs.
yeah.
And so that's also a bonus. But yeah, pre-chilled. So they'll have more of the chilling time to initiate the blooms before you plant them.
Okay. Now, before we go to Doc, let me ask you this. So what about the bulbs that we see in the packages like in the spring, though?
Well, that in the spring, they only sell spring blooming
It's only
bulbs.
spring, okay.
And that needs soil temperatures in the 70s.
Right, okay.
So it's a different
Okay.
season
Got it.
and temperature requirements for those.
Good deal. Okay. Doc.
Yeah, I mean, she hit it right on the nose as far as I'm concerned. I can't add a whole lot, but the key is the soil temperature.
Okay.
You know, if you have warm weather, you know, like we going and we have all this warm weather, and see, when I get my bulbs, you know, she's right. We do it in like October and then on into the fall. See,
Okay.
what I do is if I get them, and right now they're all on sale. I mean, they're all out there, you know, at all the big garden centers. And so it's not October.
Right.
So I put them in the crisper of my, you know, the vegetable part of my refrigerator.
Okay, okay.
So they still cool, because if you put them in warm soil, you can initiate, you know, them coming on up, because that's this what prompts them to emerge in the spring is sun, you know, getting a little warmer temperatures.
Got it.
So they can prematurely germinate.
Got it. Okay.
And then that's just depleting, the stores of carbohydrates in the bulbs, which produce the flowers.
Yes.
So I think it's key that if you buy them now to, do what she says and know to put them in the cold soil during these months that it recommends based on your zone,
Right.
but also be
Based on the
conscious
zone.
of the weather
Okay.
and the temperature, and then store them if you get them now in a cool, dry place.
Good. Those are two good points.
Yeah,
Good.
and if you do put them in the refrigerator, make sure you don't have fruit in there.
Oh, sure, that's
Right.
Yeah, the ethylene.
The ethylene gas.
The ethylene gas will destroy
Exactly.
the bulbs.
Good point.
Might
yeah.
ripen them for you a little bit,
Yeah,
right?
don't put it in there with an apple or banana.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Doc, before we leave this, so tell us what zone are you in? Because you're
I'm
in
7.
So you're in 7.
Yes,
all right?
yeah.
Here in Mississippi corn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about that? All right. I would like to plant daylilies near our house foundation where there are lots of small rocks for drainage. Where there's plenty of sun, can I plant daylilies in a well-drained area with full sun? And this is Donna. So you think about that. You like daylilies.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, of course.
Of course, he says.
Yeah, and the only thing I can say is that if it is really rocky and well drained, like she's talking about, and it gets really sunny, just in times when there's no rain, just make sure that they're, they'll tell you, they'll start wilting.
Sure.
But just give them some extra water. That's would be the only thing I'd say. I think it's a great place for them.
Okay.
Daylilies like sun
Okay.
and well drained soil.
And well-drained soil. So it's okay next to the house foundation? You have no problem with that? So they'll be fine? Okay. All right. And think about daylilies too. They're versatile. You can also plant them in wet areas. That's what I
well,
did.
and different kinds do better. Different species and different varieties do better in different areas.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and I think she's probably worried about the pH with the lime and stuff.
Oh, yeah,
And that it should be fine.
Should be okay? Okay. Plumbers replaced a line in an area I was considering for a vegetable garden. Now the area has light brown sandy clay on top. Will this different soil sustain a vegetable garden? And this is Michael from Cincinnati, Ohio. So what do you think about that one, Mr. D? So yeah, the plumbers say you got to move that now. And so they have this, this clay that's up there, right? Light brown sandy clay. What would you do?
It probably maybe. I guess we'll say maybe. You can do it. You might want to do a quick soil test on that, but it's definitely different, And you see this in farmer fields. Where especially in areas where the rivers flood and they wash sand in, and you have sandy spots, and it doesn't do as well. It dries out faster. What I would probably do is get in there with a tiller and try to really, really, really mix this up and spread it out and try to kind of mix it in the soil. These are all natural components of soil, and they are all valuable natural components of soil. Clay, very important for water holding capacity. Sand, very important for drainage. To get the water out of there.
Perfect combination, right?
So all of these are, the light brown sandy clay on top that's probably got loess and silt, sand, and clay, the components of soil.
Components, right, yeah.
And I'd probably just try to mix it up and spread it out a little bit, and then I'd probably do a quick soil test but
I would agree with that.
I think you're probably going to be all right.
I think it might be all right. I'll definitely agree with everything that you just said. I would probably add some compost if you just have some compost.
Some organic matter.
Organic matter.
Yeah.
I'll add some of that in there. Maybe some, manure.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, get it mixed up pretty good, but I think it'd be fine. Because again, you're right. I'm looking at this. You have sandy clay. Yeah. Sounds good to me.
Probably going to be all right.
I think it'd be all right.
Because your feeder roots they're not just going to be up there on top. They're going to be spreading out, and they're going to find, they're going to go out searching for kind of what they need.
What can I do to get rid of cattails in my front ditch? They thrive near my sewer drainage. And this is Menard from Lafayette, Louisiana. So the young cattails.
Yeah.
How about that? Nice picture, by the way.
It is a nice picture.
That's going to be a problem, huh? So how would you get rid of cattails?
Well, sort of like I did the dandelions and the violets.
Okay, yeah, okay.
I would dig them up. I mean, he doesn't have a huge amount of them there.
Right.
But he might have been trying to, you know, get rid of them by physically
Yeah.
removing them. And he's done a very good job because there's not very many left. And I would just keep, you know, I would, there's not very many, I would dig them up.
I would dig them
get rid
up.
of
Yeah, hand pulling, you know, shovel, dig, you know, it's moist,
Yeah.
you know, conditions. So it should be easy to dig them up, get the root system,
Yeah.
rhizomes.
Rhizomes.
So you definitely want to get those. Don't break them and leave them in the ground. Get them all out. But yeah, so hand pulling, you can kind of cut them down a little bit. That may help. But
Yeah.
I would get a shovel, dig them out. I wouldn't worry so much about using an herbicide.
No, because it's in a wet space.
Yeah.
And it's in a drainage area.
Right.
So you don't want that to travel anywhere.
Right. Which is why I would go with the hand pulling or
Digging.
Digging. Cut it down. That helps you out a little bit and dig the rest of it out. And I think you'll be fine with that. Yeah, don't worry about those herbicides. Just dig it out.
Yeah.
Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for sending in the questions. If you want more information about anything we talked about today, head on over to familyplotgarden.com. We have links to research-based publications on every topic we addressed. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Cooper. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.